ODBEST Global. Business, engineering, strategy, technology. www.olandeems.com.
Welcome to today's explainer. So, if you work in the construction industry, you already know the word claim can, well, it can instantly trigger a ton of anxiety, right? Maybe some frustration or just this looming sense of impending conflict. But today, we're going to completely flip that script. We're diving into mastering construction claims management, pulling directly from Olan Deems strategies for success in FIDIC-style contracts. Okay, let's get right into it. We really need to stop looking at claims management as this giant emotional legal battle. Instead, think of it as a proactive, completely evidence-driven governance process. It's basically a system built to protect your project margins and make sure you actually deliver on time. And this brings us to a quote that really just hits the nail on the head. Olan Deems puts it like this: "A claim is a governance mechanism. When the process is clear and evidence-driven, claims become manageable project decisions. When the process is weak or delayed, claims become disputes." I actually want that to sink in for a second. The whole point here isn't about winning some argument or throwing your weight around on site. It's about preserving what you're contractually entitled to by using clear, highly disciplined processes. So, here is our game plan for today. We'll walk through 6 key steps: defining the claim, notice and traceable evidence, core architecture, executive submission, strategic negotiation, and we'll wrap it all up with a phased implementation blueprint.
All right, starting off with Section 1, defining the claim, its scope, and its triggers.
Now, on a busy job site, these two concepts get mixed up all the time. Look, a variation, that's just a process for managing agreed-upon changes in the work. It's totally expected. A claim, on the other hand, is a formal request for extra money or time that falls strictly outside those agreed terms. We're talking about the big disruptions here, Things like totally unforeseen ground conditions, the client dragging their feet on approvals, or severe access issues. Drawing a hard line between these two is the absolute foundation for getting real commercial visibility on your project.
Moving right along to Section 2, notice and traceable evidence. We're looking at timelines and traceability here. Let's look at how this actually plays out in real time. Under FIDIC guidelines, the timeline is incredibly strict. It's non-negotiable. Step 1, the event happens. Step 2, you've got a maximum of 30 days to submit your initial written notice. And honestly, as anyone in construction knows, 30 days on a delayed site feels more like 30 minutes. Then, Step 3, within another 30 days, you've got to hand over the comprehensive supporting documentation. So here's the absolutely crucial takeaway. Executives and project leaders have to treat these time bars as absolute law. It literally doesn't matter how factually perfect your claim is. If you miss those deadlines, your contractual entitlement can just vanish into thin air. But what are you actually handing over in those 30 days? Well, I absolutely love this phrasing. Evidence is not volume. It is traceability. Look, just dumping 1,000 pages of raw, unfiltered data onto the engineer's desk, that's not a strategy. Traceability means your documents cleanly, undeniably prove that an event happened and that it caused a measurable impact. You're going to need time-stamped daily manpower logs, progress photos with captions showing the exact location and issue, and a crystal-clear correspondence trail. Every single record has to tie back to a specific date, location, and activity, no exceptions. Which brings us to Section 3, core architecture. Let's talk about analysis and evaluation. To actually make that conversion happen, you absolutely need alignment. Detailed analysis doesn't just happen in some corporate silo. It takes active, constant collaboration between the project control managers sitting in the office and the field engineers and superintendents out there in the dirt. The field guys provide the physical reality and the hard records, and the commercial team verifies those facts right against the contract terms.
Let's see how this builds into the core logical chain of an executive-grade claim. Step 1 is entitlement. Basically, the contract itself has to establish your right to relief. Step 2 is causation, meaning your facts and site records have to clearly connect the event directly to the impact. And Step 3 is quantum. This is where your analysis specifically measures the relief you're asking for, whether that's extra time or extra money. Think of it like a chain. If any single link breaks, like let's say you have the records but zero contractual entitlement, the entire submission becomes commercially vulnerable. When you're analyzing time, a super common pitfall is just proving that a delay happened. Let me tell you, that is simply not enough. You have to prove the critical path impact. Your time impact analysis needs to definitively show exactly how the delaying event altered critical activities, or how it actively stopped you from hitting that contractual completion date. You really have to link your evidence cleanly to specific schedule versions, event windows, and activity IDs. And when it comes to measuring the cost impact, or the quantum, precision is literally everything. You've got to cleanly separate your heads of claim. Direct costs are things you can touch and see, like your labor timesheets, equipment rental logs, and material delivery notes. Indirect costs, on the other hand, are your extended site overheads, home office overheads, and maybe even financing impacts if your contract allows for it. By keeping these buckets totally separate, your cost model prevents any embarrassing double counting. It gives you an audit-ready credibility that the employer simply cannot ignore. Moving on to Section 4, Executive Submission Architecture. This is all about how you actually package and present the claim. A really strong submission shouldn't read like a grievance. It should read like an executive decision pack. It needs a core narrative, so a clean executive summary, a timeline or a chronology, and your entitlement and causation arguments. Then it needs the hard analysis. That means your time and cost buildups, a record of exactly how you tried to mitigate the impact, and a highly organized, easily searchable evidence index. Keep the language factual and restrained. Seriously, leave the emotion completely out of it. Your whole goal here is to make it incredibly safe, rational, and just plain easy for the reviewer on the other side to simply say yes.
All right, Section 5, Strategic Negotiation. Let's talk about protecting that entitlement.
Once your documentation is rock solid, negotiation completely changes. It's no longer about positional posturing or who can yell the loudest. It's about flexibility. Here are the fundamental rules to protect your entitlement. First, anchor every single point to verifiable facts and records, never opinions. Next, and this is huge, separate the argument about entitlement from the argument about the valuation. Why? Because you want them to agree you actually have a right to a claim before you start haggling over the exact dollar amount. Offer them structured options like stage settlements. Keep your correspondence discipline strictly in writing, and always, always know your escalation triggers, just in case decisions start to stall out. The ultimate tactic here is maintaining what we call an executive posture. You want to be decision-ready. By handing over a perfectly clean pack that defines the exact approval parameters, you're actually removing the other party's fear. You take away their worry that they'll fail an audit or set some dangerous precedent by approving your claim. Basically, you're doing all the heavy lifting for them. Finally, we arrive at Section 6, the Phased Implementation Blueprint. Let's look at the system rollout. Olan Deems recommends a really methodical 3-phase rollout for all this. Phase 1 happens over the first 2 to 4 weeks. This is all about establishing your minimum viable governance. You're setting up a claims register to track those strict deadlines, standardizing your notice templates, and defining exactly what goes into an evidence pack. Then we hit Phase 2, weeks 4 to 10. This is where you build real analytical maturity. You introduce schedule analysis, trace your cost models, and actually train your site engineers to capture what we call claim quality records. And finally, Phase 3 is your ongoing state. This is when you're deploying monthly executive dashboards, running early warning processes, and conducting post-claim reviews so you can turn lessons learned into permanent institutional memory. Well, that brings us to the end of our explainer today. But before we go, I want to leave you with a final, slightly provocative thought to help you assess your own operational maturity. Take a hard look at your current projects and ask yourself, are your claims functioning as clear, manageable project decisions, or, because of sloppy records, missed time bars, and emotional arguments, are they silently turning into massive disputes? Look, implementing this level of commercial clarity definitely takes discipline, but it is hands down the ultimate way to protect your work, your margin, and your professional credibility. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive.
ODBEST Global Management Consultancy. Precision in strategy, power in decisions. See you in the next insight.